Hello everyone. Hope you guys are doing great. Okay, so today is having a very important topic and definitely it is going to be a lengthy topic today, right? So let's start without wasting any time. Let me share the screen. We are on time, very punctual. Okay, so let me create a new lab, right, with the name of policy routing. Okay, so let me correct the spelling, save it. So first of all, let us see what is policy routing. So let me open the policy routing PDF file, which will be available shortly in your study material. So basically, what is policy routing? Okay, so we in Fortinet firewall we call it as policy routing. Otherwise, in other firewall we call it as policy based routing, which is also known as the PBR. Okay, so it's a same thing. In a Fortinet firewall, we call it as policy routing. Otherwise, other firewall we call it as PBR, policy based routing. Okay. So basically, what does policy routing means? So if you have two lines, like say for example, you have two ISP connection in your office or maybe organization, whatever it is, right? So basically, if you have two lines to the internet and we want to determine the traffic should use which line, right? We need, say for example, let me create a small diagram. So let's say this is our firewall and we have two ISP. Let's say this is ISP number 2 and this is ISP number 1. Okay, so this is your switch and this switch is connected to, let's say we have some computer and we have some computer, we have some computer and we have some computer. Okay, so now you can see we have same connective, same bandwidth or maybe different bandwidth as per your requirement. You have taken the ISP connections, but now there is a condition is, say for example, if we do not do anything, right, we do not configure the PBR, right, so what will happen? So definitely it is going to use the specific route, let's say ISP number 1, right? If everything, the ISP is not, ISP is working perfectly fine, there is no issues with that ISP connection, right? So you are just going to, paying the bill of ISP2 without using, with you are not using the ISP2 connection, but still you have to pay the bills on time because ultimately connectivity is there. Okay, so what we have to do is we have two options. There is the concept called ECMP, right? So definitely we are going to cover that in a future lecture, but basic understanding we'll do today in today's lecture also. So basically, if we use the ECMP, so what we have to do is we do a lot load balancing. So ISP number 1 and ISP number 2 both can be used simultaneously. But when we talk about the policy route, say for example, this is the computer of my higher management, right? So what I want is, if these two computers, whenever they try to reach the internet, they should use a specific route, right? So let's say your maximum load is on ISP number 1. ISP number 2 is having very less load, right? So definitely the bandwidth is available with ISP2. So what I want is, I want the higher management computers to use this ISP2 connection because the ultimate the bandwidth is available and definitely there will be no delay, right? Automatically, easily, the second route can be followed by the higher management computers. But what will happen? Say for example, I have configured the policy based routing on this firewall and the traffic is redirecting to ISP2 by default. But what will happen if ISP2 goes down? So there is no worries because ultimately firewall follow a specific rule. If something is available, it will do. If something is not available, definitely it will take the second opinion. So if this particular PBR is not working because due to this ISP2 link is down, so it will automatically, the higher management traffic will also be redirected to ISP1. So that's the complete condition. So you can see everything is written out here. The first, it search the policy route, right? By default, it will search the policy route, the PBR. If that is available, then it will follow that PBR route. If that is not available, right, you have not configured, because it is not mandatory to configure also. So if you have not configured any policy based routing, so if there is no match in the policy route, so what will happen? The FortiGate look for the SD-WAN rule, right? There is a SD-WAN rule also. If SD-WAN is also not configured, then it will go with the FIB, forwarding information base. Means the whatever the your routing, the firewall policy and the routing table will have the information, it will forward based on that. So these three parameters are important to look into, right? So now let's do a practical about the PBR. Okay, so without wasting any time, so you can see we will definitely going to cover the ECMP. ECMP is a different altogether concept which we need to consider. By default, when we work with the multiple ISP, the by default, our firewall, FortiGate firewall, there is a concept called source IP base. What does source IP base means? The traffic is divided equal between the interface session that start the same. Okay, the session start the same source IP address, use the same path. That is the most important rule, which is known as the source IP base. But if we are working with the load balancing concept, then definitely we should be switched to the source destination IP base, where the traffic is equally divided on the interfaces, and session that start the same source IP address and goes to same destination use the same path. So definitely we are going to use this concept called source destination IP base. Okay, so now let's do a practical about this. So I'll take two firewall, right? I'll take two firewall. Why I am going to take two firewall? Because I do not have the multiple ISP, right? In my virtual technology, I have only a single ISP available, right? So to connect with this virtual technology, then in that case, what I need is I have to use this firewall. In place of this firewall, definitely you can consider your router as well. But router, if I use a router, then in that case, I need to do some configuration on my office router as well, to communication, to transmit data, to the provide this the reverse, you can say the routing to this virtual technology, the virtual topology, not the routing. So that is why I'm going to use the firewall. But we are going to consider this firewall number 2 as a router. You don't have to bother about this, because ultimately you will have the different two ISPs. But to make the complete PBR, right? So I am considering this. Okay, so now let's take the let's forget about the switch. Let me take the bridge only. Let me take the bridge. Let me take a computer, Windows computer. Let me decrease the RAM. Let me connect to this. Also, I need to access this firewall number 1. So definitely I need management cloud for that. Let me name it as MGMT. So this is going to be a management port, right? So let me connect this firewall as also, so that we can access the internet. Let me name it as WAN, or maybe ISP. Let's name it as WAN. So let me connect this to WAN, and let me change the icon of this firewall so that we can let me do it like ISP dash a router. We're not going to consider this as a firewall, but we are going to consider this as a router. Okay, let me change the icon as well. That's perfectly fine. Okay, now let me connect to this. Okay, now it is perfect topology. So now let's configure. Let me start both the firewalls, the router and firewall. We consider this as a router. We call it as router. And let me start the computer as well. So let me write all the IP address. So it is going to be LAN, and LAN will going to have the IP address of class B. Okay, and we are assuming that we have the ISP and we have two different ISP connectivity. Okay, so I am going to write like ISP-1. The first ISP is having a IP address of 10.0.0.0/8 classful IP address, and second we have the IP, let's say 172.17. Or maybe let's consider this 11.0.0/8. So this is going to be ISP-2. Okay, so the above one is ISP-2 and the lower one is ISP-1, right? So this is what we are going to configure. So let me configure this. So admin, there is no password, 123 123, and let's go config system interface, edit port 1, set mode static. So set IP, and I have not written IP, no problem. Let me write it 80/24, and set allow access HTTP and end. So we have configured 10.80, no problem. Let me write. So it is going to be WAN IP. So WAN IP is 192.168.10.80/24 on this particular port. Okay. So now let me complete the configuration for this particular router, right? For this particular firewall. So basically you don't have to bother about the configuration on this router. I am configuring this router just to complete the practical of the PBR. So there is no point in bothering about this. So let me access this. It is going to be HTTP 192.168.10.80, and by the time I'll just configure the management port with the, let's say, 192.168.10.45, I believe. Let me do it in this way. Okay, that's not the problem. So let me open the CLI admin, then there is no password, 123 123, and config system interface, edit port 1, set mode static, set IP, and IP is going to be 10.45/45 or 48, whatever, 45/24. Set IP, not set IP, set allow access, not vdom, set allow access, HTTP, and that's it. Okay, so we have configured the management IP on this particular firewall number 1. We have a single firewall only we are going to consider. So let me log in into this ISP router. So this I am going to configure so that there should not be any sort of issue. So let me write the name ISP dash router so that we can make easily the differentiate. Let me click on the interface. So port number 1, we have the WAN IP. So let me rename it as WAN. Let me consider this WAN, and whatever the protocol you need to, you can just click OK. So now port number 2 with having ISP1. Okay. So I am going to write the ISP-2, oh sorry, 1. So this is ISP1. We are going to consider this as LAN. Okay, so the IP address is going to be 10.0.0.2/8. Okay, so it may conflict. Okay, let me remove this IP address from here. Let me 12.0.0.1/8. Okay, so I'm going to configure on a port number 2, which is going to be ISP-1. So let me use this as LAN. So 10.0.0.2/8, and let me ping all that. Select all the protocol which I need, and let me configure port number 3, which is going to be 11. So let me write the name as ISP 2. Again, the LAN. Sorry, the LAN. So let me configure IP address 11.0.0.2/8 and select all the protocols you need. We are done with the configuration on interface. Now let's click on the DNS. So let me 8.8.8.8 and 1.1.1.1 apply. Because we are considering this as a router, so definitely I'm going to configure the default routing, so that I do not have to bother about configuration there on my router. Definitely I'm going to uh, assign the reverse routing for this network. So let me say 172.16.0.0/16. It should be forwarded. Okay, this router can forward through ISP1 and ISP2 as well, right? So both I have to configure 10.0.0.1 with ISP1, and same reverse is available with second also. Okay, the IP is 11.0.0.1 ISP2, you can see. So we are done with the configuration. Okay, there is only one policy left. Let's configure this. So what we need is we need to enable the visibility, feature visibility for multi interface policy, because there are multiple interfaces we have. So let me create a policy called private to public. So private we have ISP1, ISP2, and public we have WAN. Source all, destination all, and services all. There is no okay, there is a requirement of a net, of course. So we are done with the configuration. Okay, so now if I click on the DNS, so you can see DNS is reachable, which means this router has the ISP connectivity. Now let us configure. Now forget about this, whatever the configuration we have done, that configuration we have done just to complete our practical lab. Okay, so you can consider the router, but if I take router, definitely in that case I need to update a few policies. We need to configure in my office router also. So I should not configure anything on my office router. That is why I have used the firewall. Okay, so now this is the actual topology we need to focus on. So let me access this firewall with the help of 45. So HTTP 192.168.10.45, HTTP 192.168.10.45. Come on fast. Okay, now the login screen is there. So let me log in into it. Let me name it as TGMFW. FW. Okay, no, whatever it is, no problem. That's not the problem. Okay, now click on the network, then interface. Now you can see we have two port, 2 and 3. First of all, let us configure port number 2, and port number 2 will have the 10 IP. So we are going to consider this ISP-1. Let me select the LAN, or maybe WAN out here. That's not the problem. So 10.0.0.1/8. Again, it is conflicting with that aggregation router. Let me name it as 3.0.0.1/8. Let me click OK. So now let's configure port number 2 with the name of ISP-1. Let me select WAN. That's not the problem. So now 10.0.0.1/8. right? Select the protocols which you need. And there is a port number 3. So port number 3 is your ISP2, where we have configured the 11 IP ISP2. Let me select the WAN out here, 11.0.0.1/8. Select all the protocols which you need, and we are done with the configuration. Let me specify the DNS 8.8.8 1.1.1.1. Let me click OK. Let me configure the default routing. Now we have two ISPs, right? So we have to configure both. So I'm going to configure like 10.0.0.2 with the ISP1, and I'm going to configure the default routing for ISP2. This is the important configuration which you need to consider. So 11.0.0.2. So that's going with the ISP1. Okay. So now you can see if I access login and 1 2 3. Okay. Incorrect. Why? Okay. Username is admin. Password is 1 2 3. If we say get router info or routing table, and let me all. So now you can see there is by default a load balancing, right? There is a by default load balancing is happening with between the ISP1 and ISP2. Okay, ISP1 and ISP2. But okay, but what we need is we need to configure the policy route as well for both the ISP. So let me click on the setting, feature visibility, multi interface policy. Then let's go to the firewall policy. Let me create a policy, firewall policy, which is LAN to WAN. Simple. Both LAN is LAN, definitely. Okay, we have not defined LAN as well. Okay. Let me go to interface. So port number 4 is your LAN. Port number 4. Let us configure the port number 4. So this is going to be LAN. Let me configure the IP. That is going to be this. Select all the protocol which you need and click OK. Then now let's configure the firewall policy. It's going to be LAN to WAN. LAN is your incoming, outgoing is your ISP1 and ISP2. Source all, destination all, services all, right? But I'm disabling this net. Why? Because here I'm using my private network, right? In your real infra, definitely you will have the different ISP, and this is going to be your private network, and this is going to be your public network. Then in that case, you should have to enable the NAT, right? But in our case, because we are doing each and everything in our virtual environment, this is also my private network, this is also my private network. So that's why I'm just disabling the NAT. Okay, just the understanding, just do the understanding about this. So I have configured this. I have just disabled just because I have the entire network as a private network. Now let me open this computer. 1 2 3. Let's check the internet connectivity. Let me click on CMD. So if I ping a.a. Okay, before that we need to configure the IP ncpa.cpl. Let me right click on this. Let me click on the properties. IPv4. So IP address going to be 172.16.0.2, 172.16.0.1, and open DNS. Let me write open DNS 1.1.1.1, and we are done. Now let me open CMD. Now if I ping a.a.a.8, so you can see we are reachable. But what I want is I want to understand which link is been used, whether the reachability from ISP1 or ISP2. We need to check on that. So what we can do is we can use the command called trace RT. So a.a.a.8. So now let's see which link is used. So it is going, you can see it's a gateway IP. So now next it is using 10.0.0.2, right? 10.0.0, which means it is using ISP1. We can definitely confirm this by click on the dashboard. Now click on the you can say session, right? Let me click here. So we have the destination interface. Enable this, click apply. Now drag this interface to near this. So you can see ISP1 is being used. As of now, ISP1 is used, right? By default, we can see that, right? ISP continuously, ISP1 is used. Okay. Now what happened if I open a browser? If I say google.com, if I open google.com, on a second tab, I'll let me open tgmacad.com, right? I have you opened google.com as well as tgmacad.com. Now if I refresh, we have the refresh icon here as well. You can see it is going to different destinations, but still continuously you can see the ISP1 is being used, right? Continuously it is using ISP1. Continuously you can see continuously ISP1 is used by this computer, right? As of now. Okay. So you can see, let me stop this. Let me refresh again. So you can see there is no point of, there is no log for ISP2. It's continuously using ISP1. But we have two ISPs, right? ISP1 and ISP2. We have two. Let me take another computer as well. Let me click on Windows. Let me decrease the RAM. Let me connect this computer as well. Let me start this. Okay. So now what we need is, in ICMP, I have just told you that by default, the firewall ECMP is configured as a source IP base. So if some computer started using the specific IP, it will continuously use that ISP only. It will continue use the same path, right? Where the source address is same. Destination address can be anywhere, anything, but it will use the same link. So that is why our computer, this computer, the let me name it as PC1. Okay. So where we have the IP 172.16.0.2. Let me duplicate this. Okay. Let me change the computer name PC2, PC2. And let me change the IP as well here. So let me drag this computer to here like this. So it is easier for us to understand. Now let me open computer number 3. Let me see. Okay, log in into it. 1, 2, 3. Let me configure the IP address and check which ISP this computer 3 is using. Computer 2 is using. Okay. So let me ncpa.cpl. Right click, properties, IPv4 properties. So 172.16.0.3, 172.16.0.1 and 8.8.8.8 and 1.1.1.1. Now let us see which ISP this computer 2 will use. Okay. So let me open the CMD. Let's use the trace RT 1.1.1.1. Let's wait. So reach to gateway. So you can see it is also using the same ISP, right? Even though it's a different computer, but still using the same IP, right? Which is 10.0.0.2, which is ISP 1. Again, we can check on this. You can see everywhere the ISP1 is being used as of now. But we have the another connectivity as well, right? So what we need to do is we need to work with the ECMP, right? So we have to remove this source IP. We need to update the source destination IP base. What does this source destination IP base means? If source is same and destination is changed, it will use the specific use the different ISP. If the source is same and destination again change to something else, it will change the ISP again. Okay, so that is way it that is why we need to go with the, if we really wish to go with the load balancing concept, we should always consider the ECMP as source destination IP base. Okay, so how to configure this? Let me open the firewall. So let's log in into it again. So we need to go under the config system interface. I think config system setting. And here we need to write set v4 ECMP mode. And you can see if I write question mark, there are 4 options: source IP base, right? Source destination IP. By default, this is configured. Okay, we need to configure this source destination IP. So let's write source dash destination IP base, and we are done with the configuration. Okay, so we have configured. Now let's see whether it is now you going to use different ISP, right? So we are on this computer, which is, I believe it's a PC1, I believe, or PC2. Let me close this. Let me close this as well. Now let's open the PC1 first. So earlier it was using the 10.0.0.2, which is ISP1. Now let us check again. Gateway. Same, you can see, same source and same destination, same same ISP is being used, which is ISP1. No problem. No problem. We will change the destination. So we have very less traffic as of now. So definitely it may be or it may not be, right? So definitely it depend on the firewall. It automatically, manage the entire what do you call the, let me check, open the CMD again. Let me write trace RT. So if now I have changed the destination. Now let's see whether still it is going to use the same IP, same ISP or the different ISP. Again, it is using the same ISP. That's not the problem, because because we do not have that much of traffic. So what we can do is, let me open the google.com, because ultimately this is going to be open, use the tgm cad.com. Let me open the yahoo.com. So now you can see we have little bit increased the traffic. Now let's check on the firewall. Let me refresh this. And now this time you can see we are able to see ISP2 as well, right? ISP2 as well. Same computer we have used. You can see the source IP address is same. You can see 2222222. But you can see the ISP1 and ISP2. Both the ISP is being used by this computer, right? Because the moment we have increased the traffic, it has started using the load balancing concept called, right? It is also using ISP1 and ISP2, where the source is different and destination is different. So it is using different ISP. If source is different and ISP is the destination is different, it is using the different ISP. Simple as that. So now this firewall is working as a load balancing. We are able to use the ISP1 and ISP2 as definitely automatically everything is being taken care by your firewall. So you don't have to worry about this. So it's a real practical example you can see, right? Now let's check out on the second also. So let me see which ISP is been used by this computer. Let me trace RT 1.1.1.1. So you can see earlier it was using for same destination. You can see for same it was using the ISP1. Now here you can see it is using ISP2, right? Here you can see it is using ISP2. If I use browser, and I'll try to open different website. Let me open say for example TGM Infotech this time, tgminfotech.com, which is my website only, right? And I'll open one of my clients website, which is clickraja.com, right? So, and of course I'll open the, say for example, cf001-E something like that. I think there is a website with the name of cf. Anyways, let's refresh, and you can see this computer, right? PC2 is using ISP2 as well as ISP1. Both the ISP is been used by PC2 also, right? Now because we have configured the firewall in a such a way, so it should easily load balance between your ISP1 and ISP2. Now let us consider, let me take not the shape, custom shape. Let me rename it as anything. Border is 5. Okay, let's consider this computer is from my higher management. This PC2 is my higher management computer. So I want, because I gone through the entire the sessions, so I come to know about, okay, ISP2 is less used than compared to ISP1. ISP2 is less used compared to ISP1. So what I want is my higher management should always use the ISP2 only, right? So how to configure the policy based routing? So let's click on the network. There is a, under the static routing, there is another option called policy route. Now let me click on the policy route, right? So you can see as of now there is no policy. So we are going to create a policy. Now let me click on the create new. Here, what is your incoming interface, right? So definitely local area network LAN is port number 4, and the source IP address. So what is the source IP address? 172.16.0.3. So 172.16.0.3. Now because I have a single computer, so definitely the slash value should be 32. I'm sure you guys have understood this entire concept in a CCNA networking, right? So if you have the single computer, you can write this. If you have multiple computer, definitely you can add one by one as well, and you can define the range as well. Okay, so you can add the address, create the address. So definitely we have not created the address as of now. We are going to cover how to create the addresses. So you can select the address as well, means the range of computers, like from starting from here to here, right? Like that you can consider the addresses also, right? Range also, the number of computers for the same policy. If now it is depend on you whether you want to define this policy, use this policy for specific destination. Say for example we have the VPN configuration, right? We have the VPN policy available with us. VPN is available. So what we want is, whenever, right, whenever this computer try to reach, let's say we have another server out here. When this computer try to reach this server, right, then only it should use the specific route. If this computer is trying to reach this destination with the cross sign on it, so what should be the then in that case it should use the ISP1. You can define like that only. Okay, but as of now we don't know, right? We don't know which destination or this particular higher management will go, right? It can, the higher management can, reach to any destination. In that case only this particular condition should be applicable. So now we are not defining any destination. If you are not defining any destination, which means if source is this and destination can be anything, and what the protocol, you can define the type of traffic like TCP handled, UDP handled, or any. So I'm going with the any, right? If this particular computer, reach to any destination, it should use any protocol, right? What to do? Select the outgoing interface. I am going to select the ISP2. And what is the gateway address? So definitely 11.2, 11.0.0.2. Okay. Now enable the policy and click on OK. So I have configured this policy, firewall policy. You can see as of now, there is no hit count, right? It's a 0. Now let me open this computer. Let me close all that. Now if I come open this particular computer, right? So if there is no CFI as well. Okay. So let me initiate the traffic. Let me click, open the yahoo.com as well. And let me show you through the CLI as well. So earlier it was using the ISP2 only. Okay. This time it should use only ISP2. We'll come to know with the help of hit counts. And you can see using ISP2, using the ISP2. And of course, this traffic will also use the same route. You can see if I refresh, hit count should increase. And you can see how many hit count are there now. 109, which means now this policy is been used. You can check through this the session view also, right? So you can see you can filter like this. Let me filter with the name of source IP. You can see now it is going through the ISP2. It's completely using ISP2, right? You can see completely it is using ISP2, right? Because of the policy based routing. So now the computer 2 is using the ISP2 link. What will happen if ISP2 link goes down? Right. So now let's go to network, then interface. Let me open ISP2 link. Let me disable this. So now ISP2 link is not available. Right. Now still we able to use internet, and you can see still we are able to use internet. Right. Now let's see which link is been used by this computer. Earlier it was going through the ISP2, but now because ISP2 is down, it is directly redirecting automatically to use the ISP1. Right. Let's go here. Let me click on the dashboard session view. Let me filter with the IP, source IP, and source IP is this. Right. So now you can see ISP1 is used because ISP2 is not available. It is trying to go to ISP2, right? It is trying to go to ISP2, but ISP2 is not available. That is it. That is why it is going through ISP1. You can see ISP1 is using, right? So this is the basically a complete practical demonstration for policy routing. You can see hit counts are increasing. But now, because ISP2 is down, now the hit count will not increase. Okay, so you can check out yourself. Let me enable this link, which is ISP2. Let me enable this. Click OK. And now again, because the ISP2 is available, the PC2 will again, start using the ISP2. Okay, so that's the complete, you can say the practical lab for the ISP, right? Not the multiple ISP. When you are working with the multiple ISP, right? You should always go with the load balancing, and for load balancing always focus on the ECMP. Take care of the ECMP, then only your load balancing will work, otherwise it will not work automatically. Okay, so there is one more concept, definitely we will cover in the next class. So what we need to consider is we definitely have to take care of the AD value as well, right? So AD value, so now I have two ISPs, so both the ISP, the AD value should be same, right? If say for example ISP1 is having AD value of 10, and the ISP2 is having, say for example 50 15 or 20 or whatever it is, then in that case the entire policy based routing will not work. The load balancing concept will not work. Why? Because if I just take you to the CLI option, let me log in. Now if I say get router info routing table all, so you can see there is only ISP1 link is available. The second link is not available as of now because we have set the priority for ISP1 and ISP2. As of now, you can see under the routing table, we can see it is clearly written as of now, each and every traffic should go through ISP1 only. Okay, so that is why you should always focus on the AD value also. It is important. If you work with the load balancing concept, then in that case definitely ECMP as well as the AD value of your default routing also be considered. Okay, so that's all for today. So if you guys have any doubts, please make a note of that so that we can discuss in the doubt session. Take care. Bye bye.